solo songs to play, so we can glaze over just a little bit more, and then I'll play some more hits, maybe, I don't know. So this next song is from my last solo album. I haven't made one for about 4 years. I've actually written and recorded most of the next album, which is a musical. So I've written with Boo Hewerdine, but we don't have the funding to put it out, so it's just sitting there. But at the moment it's a 50-minute musical about a guy who reveals quite a lot about himself in his relationship with a woman that he discovers in his midlife crisis. It's about midlife crisis. I've been there. I've written a musical. This is a song called Passion Killer. Writing with Boo Hewerdine is a lovely experience, and he brings a lot of humour to the things that I work on. And when I wrote this, I couldn't ever imagine being in this person's situation. It was like, okay, I am inventing this couple who live in this house with kids. At that period of my life, I was living on my own in a Muse house. I was Burlington Bertie, the gay charger, used to mince around town. It was wonderful. Things changed. And as I was saying in the first half about songs suddenly becoming absolutely part of your life, this one has become part of my life. We have to be quiet in the bed beneath the duvet cover, lost inside a silent void, with Dad sleeping with Mother. Down the hall, they're awake, you know they'll hear the bedroom shake, so you turn over and hold your shape. We sneak around in the night so the kids don't hear us. When you live in a very small house, you end up with a very small penis. He's in his room with his small mates, they play guitar, they throw some shapes, tossing and turning under the sheets. The faces that he pulls are disgusted and demented. The unsaid fills the air as the teenager is invented. Like Frankenstein, his brain is slow. There are things you know he knows. We have to wait till he goes out before we grunt and groan. When he skateboards into town, the house becomes our own. I grab a beer out of the fridge, I chain the door, I flick the switch. We're off to bed with a packet of crisps. We're off to bed and we're licking our lips. The faces that he pulls are disgusted and demented. Unsaid fills the air as a teenager is invented. Like Frankenstein, his brain is slow. But there are things you know he knows. Passion killer, passion killer, passion killer. What a rascal. You know, obviously after Squeeze broke up in '84, we did get back together and made another 5 albums, but I haven't learnt any of them, so I'm not going to play any of them tonight. I could talk about them though. I mean, Some Fantastic Place was, again, like East Side Story, one of my proudest moments. making that album. It was just a fantastic experience. And that song means an awful lot to me and Glenn, because it was written about Maxine, and Maxine was the person who helped Glenn pick up the phone and make that call 42 years ago. And here we are, 42 years later. Last week, I'm at Glenn's studio, and I'm sitting with him, and we're talking, and we both looked at each other and said, we haven't talked like this in 42 years. It's most extraordinary, and I can genuinely tell you how wonderful that feeling is. Somebody said to me, if you carry on writing with Glenn and working with Squeeze, it will replicate your first marriage. It will be like going back to your first wife. How good would that be? I had to think about it. I thought, well, that's a very deep thought. But luckily, Glenn wasn't my first wife. So I don't have to worry about that. So anyway, we're going through our songbooks. We're learning some very obscure old songs that are really brilliant, and we're going to take them on the road, as I said before. So, does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Why do you call yourself Squeeze?
Well, before we were called Squeeze, we were called Skyco, which is a ridiculously stupid name. And then we were called Cum, which is a really stupid name as well. Didn't stick really. And we didn't have a name that was kind of representative of the music we were playing. And because we were quite democratic in those days, we decided to each choose some names and put them in a hat. And Maxine's mother picked out Squeeze from the hat. We could have been called the Hubcaps, for instance, or some jolly other name, but it was Squeeze. And Squeeze was chosen from a Velvet Underground album that came out around the same time, which was called Squeeze, and was their least successful album. You should have told us everything we needed to know. It also didn't have any original members of the Velvet Underground in the band. So there you go. Any other questions? Yeah?
On Some Fantastic Place, Jolly Comes Home, was that based on anyone in particular or just an observation?
The song Jolly Comes Home?
Jolly Comes Home, yeah.
That's a really personal question. Yes, it was inspired by a relationship that I was in at that time when I lived here in Kent, and it's a fantastic time in that relationship. But that song was very deeply written about that part of my life, I suppose. That's a great song, actually. I really like that song. I'll tell Glenn that. That's a good idea. We'll do that one.
When you were doing originally going to record East Side Story and have different producers, Nick Lowe being one of them, did any recordings come with Nick, or couldn't you get him out the pub?
Yeah, when we went into this to record East Side Story, our manager Jake Riviera had this great idea that there'd be four different, it would be a double-sided album, and Paul McCartney would record one side, Dave Edmunds would record a side, Nick Lowe and Elvis Costello would have a side each. We went in the studio with Dave Edmunds and we recorded Tempted and another song, and it didn't really get off the ground. Dave wasn't really focused. We went in the studio with Nick Lowe, and it wasn't him we couldn't get out of the pub, it was us we couldn't get out of the pub. But we recorded 4 or 5 great tracks, and I've still got copies of those. And obviously Elvis Costello tells its own story. Paul McCartney was really up for it, apparently, at the time, but then wasn't, so it didn't happen. I've met him since, but I've never asked him about it. I thought it would be too embarrassing.
So are there some missing songs that...
Pardon?
Are there some missing songs that have never been released, or from that plan to do it for sides? Or?
Yeah, there are some songs. I mean, Yeah, Glenn is a fantastic archivist. He's got a whole room full of tapes, and I've got I've got 282 demos on my laptop, and I gave them a copy to Glenn last week as we were trying to filter through which songs we're going to do for the tour. So there's a lot of stuff there. It's not all good, I can tell you. It's a lot of rubbish. So, Cool for Cats is the song that everybody kind of leans towards. And it was written really quickly. It's one of those diamond songs that just came out of nowhere. We had a backing track for it, but no lyric particularly. So I took the cassette home and I was trying to think of a lyric for it, which needed a kind of melody, but I wasn't very good at writing melodies. And I couldn't think of a lyric, and I put the TV on, Benny Hill was on, and I was just taken into that immediacy of his songs, you know, the poetry of his songs was stupid, yeah, it rhymed really, really well. And so Cool for Cats was born, if you like, nicked from the Benny Hill sketch. And I went in the next day to the studio and I read the lyric to the band over the microphone with the music playing, and basically that was it. It was the song. On Top of the Pops. Recognised in the high street. My mum suddenly liked me again. She thought I was brilliant and that it was the right thing to be in the music industry after all. And in fact, every time I went around the council, onto the council estate where we lived, all the neighbours would come out as well, and they liked me. And they used to hate me. So I owe my life to this song in many ways. The Indian send signals from the rocks above the past. Cowboys take position in the bushes and the grass. The score is with the couple, she is tied against a tree. She doesn't mind her language, it's a beating she don't need. She lets loose all the horses when the corporal is asleep. And he wakes to find the fire's dead and arrows in his hand. And Davy Crockett rides around and says it's cool for cats, it's cool for cats. That's very quiet. The Sweeney's doing 90 cause they got nowhere to go to get a gang of villains in a shed up at Heathrow. They're counting up the fivers when the handcuffs suck again. They're in and out of once to put the numbers on their names. It's funny how the missus always looks a bit insane. Meanwhile at the station there's a couple of likely lads who swear I as your father and they're very cool for cats, cool for cats. To change the mood a little, I've been posing down the pub. I see in my reflection, looking slightly rough. I fancy this, I fancy that, I wanna be so flash. Give a little muscle, spend a little cash. But all I get is bitter and a nasty little rash. By the time I'm sober, I've forgotten what I've had. And everybody tells me that it's cool to be a cat, it's cool for cats. Jesus Christ. Shape up at the disco and I think I've got a pull. I ask her lots of questions as she hangs onto the wall. I kiss her for the first time and then I take her home. And invite her in for coffee and I'll give the dog a bone. She says she likes the disco so she's always on her own. I said I'll see her later and I'll give her some old chat. Based on the TV when it's cool for cats, it's cool for cats. One more time. Oh, prison for me, I think.